Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you and Tyaby. William Haynes here, you there, here on this Wednesday night, August the 19th at 10:29 with 51 seconds to go right along with it, taking you right up until about 11:30 or so. See if we can get some callers up here on the show and do those things. Of course, we'll be recapping tonight's Rays 4-2 win over the New York Yankees. What a good game it was. A good start from Tyler Glasnow. The bullpen did their thing. Another really good inning from Nick Anderson. So on and so forth. We'll be taking your calls for about another hour at 877-566-1020. And I think we may have a caller here shortly. We'll wait on that. If you're unfamiliar with how the program works, about every 20 minutes or so, we'll take a break, 2020 sports update, and we'll give you the baseball scores first, but also some playoff basketball and hockey and everything like that. So again, number to call, 877-566-1020, internationally toll-free. We would love nothing more than to hear from you, your Rays calls. If you have any lightning thoughts, as the Tampa Bay Lightning did clinch their series against the Columbus Blue Jackets, 4-1 today. It was an overtime win. They came down 2 goals with about 6 minutes left to play. And, Braden Point with the goal. He's certainly becoming a clutch playoff performer. We don't know who they will play next, as the way hockey's doing it this year, they're going to reseed. Maybe a team like the Islanders. It looks like the Canadians are at 4-3 up on the Phillies right now, so they may try and keep that series going a little longer. The Canadians have their backs up against the wall. They're down 3-1. And also we have some playoff basketball. Those series just getting underway. I'm trying to delay the game recap just a little bit because I think we will have some callers here joining the show shortly. Again, number to call if you're listening, 877-566-1020. The Rays improved tonight to 16-9, a season high watermark, 7 games above 500, and defeat the New York Yankees, who dropped to 16-8. The Yankees' lead in the American League East is now just half a game, so a Rays win tomorrow and a series sweep would give the Rays sole possession of first place, and also Baltimore with their loss tonight is now 3.5 games back of the Rays. So it looks like it's going to be, that 2-team race for 2 spots essentially. It doesn't really matter who wins the American League East. Both the first 2 place teams will end up making the postseason. The Orioles may be coming back down to earth. They've lost 4 straight. The Blue Jays have won 3 straight after taking a series loss to the Rays in Buffalo. And the Red Sox have really bottomed out. They're at 7-18 right now, and I would say they are probably out of it. Again, number to call, 877-566-1020. There is a game tomorrow against the Yankees at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll be on, we'll call it 9 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be on and taking your calls and all that good stuff then. And we do have a caller right now. We're going to go to the phones. And we have Seth calling from Los Angeles. Seth, you're on the William Haynes Show. How's it going, man? Absolutely. Yeah, how could you not? A- Absolutely, yeah. The Yankees lose their first series in the Bronx since I believe it was April of last year. So obviously something the Yankees are not accustomed to doing. Really great series overall. The starting pitching is on the up and ups. The bullpen is holding together in the offense. I mean, Brandon Lau and those guys. I mean, the team firing on all cylinders right now. Nothing really to complain about. Yeah, it's his first save of the year and only his second save as a Ray. His only other one, it was like that. It was the 3 outing appearance. So Beeks, obviously not a guy used to that kind of spot. You were right that the winning run was at the plate. And the stuff, I mean, you're right. It was some ballsy pitches and big moments, and his stuff was enough. I mean, it was the bottom of the order, but anytime, when you're facing the Yankees in the bottom of the ninth, it always gets interesting. And yeah, absolutely great performance. You got to love how you feel about Beeks. And really, the whole bullpen right now looks really good. Absolutely, and including a couple of guys early on in the game that were not doing so well, both homering off of Garrett Cole. It was G-Man Choi from the left side for the first time of the year, and of course, who could forget the Mike Zunino homer? So, unexpected heroes. You throw Beeks in with that, and then the guys that have been contributors, Brasso again coming up in a big spot. Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Garrett Cole's stuff was on. He went 6 and 2/3. I thought for a second there that we were going to snap his with the 20 straight wins. That would have been absolutely crazy. He ends up, yeah. I'm trying to remember the spot. It was a righty. Was it Brasso? Yeah, she should have brought Ottavino in to face Brasso. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't. And I mean, a guy like Zach Britton, who's already caught a loss at the hands of the Rays. Yeah, I mean, I would say that some Yankees fans are going to have some annoyed calls to their station tonight, no doubt. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, a guy that didn't have a lot of coaching experience. He was a former hero as a Yankee player and a broadcaster. I mean, yeah, he's obviously he's no Kevin Cash, that's for sure. Yeah, yeah, I think Cash maybe pushing his luck a little bit, asking for Rowe to get saves in back-to-back games against a Yankees squad. I mean, I think something that maybe should be brought up. This isn't a full strength Yankees lineup. No Judge, no Stanton, no LeMahieu. But of course, I mean, still good hitters top to bottom. I was a little surprised that he brought Nick Anderson in back-to-back games because that's something he usually does not do. But Cash felt that this game was really important in taking a series here in the Bronx, and maybe going for first place. So obviously, you see where Kevin Cash's head is at. He definitely managed this game quite aggressive, I would say. Yeah, and obviously that comes at a consequence with the way the bullpen is. I think getting tonight's win was important. They were playing Garrett Cole, and you go for that win when you get it. They have the series victory wrapped up. A sweep may not be realistic. I mean, you look at guys that are available out of the pen probably tomorrow. Obviously, Fairbanks, Anderson, and Rowe have already pitched a back-to-back, so they're going to be out. You have Castillo on 1 day's rest. You got Beeks, who's warmed up the last couple of days but hasn't come in. But then after that, you're talking really B and C tier relievers. Anthony Bonda, John Curtis, Aaron Loop, Aaron Sleggers, and then maybe a bit of Ryan Thompson. So I don't feel great about the race tomorrow. Obviously, the move for Anderson and Rowe, and I think even Beeks to an extent. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Cash wanted the win tonight pretty bad. That's right. I believe that's right, yeah. It, ab- Absolutely, and let's not forget. I mean, Trevor Richards, who it's not announced officially yet, but I assume he'll be the starter tomorrow. His last time against the Yankees, I think it was last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago. It was Morton getting the start. He went to 2 innings and then had the shoulder issue, and then Trevor Richards pitched 4 innings of no earned run ball. So the fact that he did what he did, his changeup was working, he was fooling those Yankees hitters. If he can give you another outing like that tomorrow, and the Rays will be facing James Paxton, and I know we both remember what happened the last time Paxton faced the Rays. So the bullpen options aren't great, but I think that the starting pitching matchup you have to like. Absolutely, yeah. Maybe that. How great would that be if the Yankees are just headed to a slump right now, and the Rays can put some distance between the two? Also, a point about Richards I would bring up: if he's going to end up being a guy for the Rays that can make a clutch, timely start, you pair him with Nick Anderson, the two pitchers that they got from the Marlins. I mean, everyone likes to talk about the Meadows and Glasnow trade, but what a fleecing of the Marlins that could end up being. You have a lights out reliever in Nick Anderson, Trevor Richards, and all you had to give up was the original opener Ryan Stanek and prospect Justin Williams, who didn't look like he was going anywhere with the Rays anyway. Yeah, and I just hope the bullpen can stick together. Obviously, Nick Anderson is the most high leverage spot. I mean, Jose Alvarado, he's going to miss a couple of weeks. Diego Castillo has been on and off a bit. We know what we've seen with Rowe. Oliver Drake should be coming back. I mean, that's always kind of the thing with the Rays, isn't it? Is like, well, if the bullpen has guys, but can they hold together? And they're doing well right now. I just hope they can keep it going.
You know what? Honestly, since they kind of removed Alvarado got injured, I wish Ethan Katz would just bring him in for one more game and see what I'm afraid of Katz is not playing at the moment. Like, I don't think Jose Alvarado is actually going to. I think he is, quite honestly, the biggest race winner for the entire season. Like, he is such a phony player. He's not actually a good pitcher. Um, he has one degree, and I see no evidence he's that good since. So I would say he's pretty much a poser in my eyes at this point. But I mean, we'll see. That could just be the kind of dickish LA fan in me. And it's like, oh, that guy sucks. We need to talk to him. Like that was, I kind of reacted that way about Kinley last year for the Dodgers, and now I'm like sitting here 3 weeks in a row because he's turned into Mariano Rivera in the span of like a year. So I'm completely in a row on that one. So I don't know. Maybe Alvarado is really, really great, and it's just going through slumps and injuries and shit. But I think eventually you got to get to the point where you sit here and say, is it slumps and injuries or is he just bad? You know?
Yeah, I mean, dating back to, yeah, I mean, he was good all through 2018, and then he had a really hot start in 2019, and then he had that issue where he had to go back for a family personal issue in Venezuela, and he was gone, I think, for a month or 6 weeks or something, an extended period of time. He comes back. He obviously wasn't ready. He wasn't doing his conditioning and his throwing like he probably should have been doing. And I think it was an oblique tear or something like that. They end up shutting him down. And then what we've seen this year, his control is not great. He still can throw flame. But I mean, other than that, a guy who's going to walk people and throw, just hang pitches over the middle, that's not a guy you can trust in the back end, which is really a shame because we thought he would be ultimately kind of the setup man to Nick Anderson, and doesn't look like that's going to be the case for at least a substantial amount of time.
That might, honestly, what you just put out there, probably my biggest concern about the Rays at this moment. I think I had a different take last week. I told you what I think my biggest concern now, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, is probably that we do not have a setup man for Ando. I don't know who that guy is. We bring in set up for Anderson at this point because, and honestly, we haven't been using him as a closer like we were supposed to. The whole logic was with getting rid of Pagan, which, by the way, it seems like we won the Pagan trade based on Margot's sudden offensive breakout and Pagan just completely slumping for the Padres. What kind of the whole impetus of the Pagan trade is we get rid of this guy we sell high and bring Anderson in as the closer, and then Castillo Alvarado sets him up. At this point, I think that completely failed because Anderson is now not the closer as far as we're concerned. We are the closer by committee, and Anderson is the huge high leverage dude you bring in at any moment. And we don't have a setup man for him, and if we did, maybe we wouldn't have to keep using him as not a closer. So maybe the Rays need to trade. Maybe we need to go after somebody at the deadline that can be a high inning, like big deal reliever. I think that might be something we need to think about as a team. I think maybe the boys in the front office need to get thinking about how we can resolve this issue.
Yeah, I think the obviously he's not a big name like you were saying, but the Garcia guy that they just acquired from Philadelphia, he's got a nasty slider. I think we'll see him up. Obviously, they need a little bit of help, and the thing that I would say about Anderson, obviously the traditional closer is always nice, and Nick Anderson, he got his first save as a Ray this season, as well as he was last year. I mean, the Rays look at things, especially with the pitching, differently. We know with the opener and all that. Obviously, Kevin Cash, he doesn't view the ninth inning all the time as the most high leverage situation. And I think just I think Nick Anderson ultimately is the closer, but Kevin Cash just has a different take on what a closer and what a save really is, because that eighth inning tonight, for example, that was the more high leverage spot, the hitters that he faced, and because the ninth inning it was the bottom of the order. So I think ultimately Nick Anderson still is the closer, but it's just it's different from what every other team does. Yeah, but I think you did make a good point. Is I think the front office isn't done with the trades. I was skeptical going into this year, just with a 60-game season. How much does a title really mean this year? How many trades really would be made? Obviously, the Rays aren't going to go acquire a huge name that has a big contract. Craig Kimbrell types, but the Garcia guy from the Phillies, I don't think we'll see soon, and some other additions. I would say right now the bullpen is probably, because obviously you can't afford to trade for a starter. Those are just too pricey. I would say the bullpen is probably the biggest target for additions over the next week and a half or so before the deadline. Certainly, it would be a win-win for you. Yeah, the thing about the Padres, I would say, I think they're only a game or two over 500 at this point. They did go in a bit of a slump, but their playoff window, they're hoping is opening. I know Kirby Yates isn't exactly young, but they're certainly not going to be sellers at the deadline by any means. So if they did want to acquire him, they would have to give up more than Andrew Friedman would be willing to give, I would say. Yeah, certainly. What would you say about an Edwin Diaz deal? I mean, he's only getting paid $500,000 this year. The contract is still cheap. I'm sure the Mets would love to move on from him if they can. Kyle Snyder, yeah.
Kyle Snyder, there, yeah, there you go. If we got it back and we got Snyder to really work on him, I think maybe he would be even better than he ever was for the Mets. So, we're all Mets, right?
Yeah,
Maybe the little Mets will do it.
yeah, I saw an interesting video a little bit ago. I'll put it on my Twitter at WHBC Stream. It was a guy. I don't know if he was a Mets fan or what, but he did a whole in depth breakdown on kind of the demise of Edwin Diaz, and his guess was the pitching coach that the Mets had at a time. They teach their pitchers to throw a different kind of slider than he was doing in Seattle, and it was a chain of events, and it all unraveled for him. So I think pitching coaches can make such a difference, positive and negative, and with what Kyle Snyder can do with a guy like Tyler Glasnow and all those guys. I wouldn't expect Edwin Diaz to come here, but I think that would certainly be an interesting proposition.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have to be. And you know what? Actually, Kyle Glasnow. Boy, was it nice to see him in the game tonight. I was happy to see that. I think he was returning to form. But honestly, I think in this game, he gave up 2 runs. But if he's pitching this way against, say, the Orioles or the Blue Jays, he ain't giving up 2 runs. He probably would give up maybe 1 the way he pitched tonight. So that that gives me a lot of hope. Actually, seeing Glasnow pitch that way gives me a lot of hope that we will have our big 3 back. And instead of Gordon, we'll have Snell, Glasnow, Yarbrough, and we'll the guy. But either way, I'm happy to plant Glasnow back.
Yeah, there was a lot to like about Glasnow's start. 13 of 22 as far as first pitch strikes. Fairly efficient, almost got through 6 and only 88 pitches, so he's probably close to being fully stretched out. The only complaint I would have about him is he still doesn't have that high fastball, kind of like Snell, where he wants to put it, but the off-speed stuff is working right now. And I mean, that fastball is just, it is unhittable. It's got movement, and it's, 98, 99. So I think definitely he's back. This was a big turning point for him this year. Also, I noticed with his mechanics, but his a couple starts earlier this year, he had a bunch of wild mechanics, like he would do a squat down and do everything like that. He ditched all that crap. He simplified it all. Probably it was Kyle Snyder that was in his ear helping him with that. So I think, yeah, this was a huge night for him, a turning point hopefully, and Lord knows we need a stable piece like that in the rotation.
100%. Especially with Gordon and Chirinos now hurt too. I'm very worried about Yanni. I'm concerned. I think that he is becoming not the best fifth starter anymore. I think next year we might have to consider moving on from him if he's gonna get injured this way. We've got to maybe think about moving on from him, especially because he's gonna be gone. No matter what happens, the Rays need to acquire a starting pitcher next year. It is a must. We have to acquire someone to replace him. There can be no exceptions made to this. They cannot screw this up. We need to go after someone good. I was desperately hoping against hope that we might be able to sign Greasy and get him back from the Twins this year.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he appears to be returning to the Twins and staying with them for a little while. So if we can't get him, maybe we need to get Alvin Cobb back. That's another one. He seems to be pitching very well for the Orioles now. Maybe he needs to be a consideration, and maybe we need to go after at least a 3. Because we got a 1 and a 2. We got Blake and Glass now. And maybe Yarbrough's our 3. He's been pitching fantastic this year. But my biggest concern is that once Morton's gone and Yanni's hurting all the time, we need someone to really lock down the later half of our rotation. We got to get like a 3rd or 4th starter. That's something that has to be a consideration next year. Especially, even if we win the World Series this year, even if it's like by the grace of God, we win the World Series this year and do wonderfully and do all this great stuff, we still need to look to the future because this is going to be a 60 game. We need to get 162 games World Series. So I think we definitely need to be looking at somebody. We need to get that guy.
If Brendan McKay and Brent Honeywell are both get called up and they're healthy, would you count that as a couple of additions to the rotation?
At this point, remember what I said. We're probably going to end up having to move on from Yanni. So then
Yeah, I think Yanni Chirinos really is a super huge part of the equation. We talked about this a little bit the last time we spoke about the money and the finance point of things. The starting pitching market is inflated. All those guys get way overpaid. The Rays obviously paying $15 million a year for Charlie Morton was a pretty big deal, even though Charlie Morton closed out a World Series. With all this COVID stuff, obviously Stu's probably losing some money this year. The budget, I would imagine, is probably going to shrink down a little bit. The free agent market, like I said, the starting pitcher, it's not going to be easy to bring one in, and the prospects is really the only way I see them going. And if they're not going to be healthy, they're going to be in some hot water.
Well, no, I should be clear. I do not expect Stu to buy his free agents at the offseason deadline this year. Not at all. I do not anticipate that happening, especially because there really aren't that many good super free agents that are going up this year. There's not that many. No, I would actually anticipate more trades from a team that maybe is kind of weak. What I would, one who I'd actually do last season when I was sitting here in front of me, maybe we can get him, Robbie Ray.
Yeah, Robbie Ray, it looks like his salary for this year is just under $10 million, and he'll be a free agent in 2021. So, I mean, if they've got the budget for that, obviously, I remember his last start out was pretty good. No hits, I think, through 5 innings or so. That would be a nice addition. Yeah, I think Yanni Chirinos will probably end up getting shut down for the year. Just the trend that I've been seeing. Brendan McKay with the shoulder that kept flaring up, they shut him down. And with Chirinos, it's concerning to me. The triceps was inflamed, and then he came back, and then it was an elbow issue. So then that's a real chain of events that could snowball all these parts of the arm, that one issue after the next. So I can't imagine that he'll probably pitch again in 2020. Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, too, with the Rays. Once all they have to do is get into the playoffs. Once you get into the postseason, it's a three-man rotation. You're looking at Morton, Snell, and Glasnow, and then you may have to do like an opener with Castillo, like they did against the Astros last year. I mean, with that fifth starter, whether it's going to be, I mean, whoever the Port Charlotte shuttle, they call up all these different guys, Bonda or Trevor Richards or whatever the case is. All you got to do is get the first or second place in the American League East, and your big three is going to be able to carry you through October. Yeah, Yarbrough obviously he gives you no reason not to like him. 18-5 in his rookie season following an opener. He finally got stretched out to a starter last year, and he came in behind an opener in Castillo in Game 4 of that ALDS last year, and it was fine. He was pitching when the relay occurred. The thing about Charlie Morton is I can't sit in here and argue. Morton obviously is not the ground chuck of 2019, but what he can do in October speaks for itself. He closed out a World Series with the Astros. He put the team on his back for most of 2019, even the regular season. It big starts. The wild card game against Oakland, he came up huge, and a start in Game 3 against the Astros was huge. Even if he doesn't have his best stuff, the mental game with him is huge, and he knows what he can do. And I would trust him in the playoffs to give him the ball if you're going to go with the big three. Yeah, that'll certainly, I'm sure, that will be the talk up until October. So who are going to go with? Obviously, Snell and Glasnow will be in there, and if they're going to go with the 3-man rotation, they may just go a 4-man rotation and give each guy extra rest and do Yarbrough and Morton. I'm hoping Morton can come back. His stint on the injury list was more caution than anything. It wasn't really an injury; it was just a shoulder fatigue or whatever his wording was. So I'm interested to see when he comes back. Obviously, Yarbrough has been a steady force right out the gate. Obviously, he was the most impressive, even the first time through the rotation. So I like what he's doing. It looks like Morton is going to be back this weekend against the Blue Jays. So definitely, yeah, let's reassess and see from there if he's got a decent start his first time back. He's going to be out for that weekend series. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Definitely give me a call back next week and we'll talk some more. And obviously, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Always great stuff from you, Seth. Thank you for the call. You too. Thanks. And that was Seth from Los Angeles. Again, Seth, thank you so much for the call. It is much appreciated as always. I'm thinking there might have been some technical difficulties there with the call. I tried to plug in some sound a little bit. I'm supposed to have the Skype feed run through the computer, but to me it didn't look like it was running through. I'll go back and look at it. So if you were listening for 20 or 30 minutes and couldn't hear Seth's side of things, I certainly apologize for that. But we'll get that fixed for the next caller. If we have anyone that's still listening, a number to call 877-566-1020. At 11:12, we're going to take a break, give you the baseball scores, come back, and we will recap in depth tonight's Rays win. HBC. Most of tonight's MLB action has gone final. A couple doubleheaders as well. We start with the White Sox 5-3 over the Tigers. In the first game of the doubleheader, it was the Reds 5-0 over the Royals, and in Game 2, it was the Royals 4-0 again over the Reds. It was the Mets 5-3 over the Marlins, the Indians 6, Pirates 1. Obviously, the Rays win 4-2 over the Yankees. Another doubleheader. It was a split. Cardinals take one, Cubs take the other. The Red Sox 6-3 over the Phillies. The Blue Jays tonight 5-2 over the Orioles. And a couple of games on the West Coast that are in action. It is the Giants 3-0 over the Angels. The Mariners 5, Dodgers 3 in the fourth. In the fifth, it's the Athletics 4-0 over the Diamondbacks, and some games late in action. In the seventh, Padres 2-1 over the Rangers. In the eighth, it's the Astros 11-3 over the sliding Rockies. And at this game that has just gone final, the Brewers win 9-3 over the Twins.
Hey, sports fans! William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 636. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:15, we are back on the William Haynes Show again, talking tonight's Rays 4-2 win over the Yankees. We had Seth from LA calling before the break, and we appreciate his call. Hopefully, the audio was okay. Was trying to fix that a little bit during the break. And to anyone listening, if you want to call in and talk Rays or whatever you got on your mind with sports, also Lightning Series win, the number to call 877-566-1020 with you. Maybe about another 20 minutes or so. We'll play it by ear. Inning by inning breakdown of the game. Tonight we look at the way the Rays lined up defensively, starting in the outfield from left to right. It was Meadows in left, Kiermaier in center, Margot in right, and then the infield from left to right. It was Yandy at third, Adames at shortstop, Lau at second base, and Choi at first base. Jose Martinez DH'd, Mike Zunino caught, and it was Tyler Glasnow as the starting pitcher. And then the way the lineup shook out, it was Meadows, Diaz, Lau, followed by Martinez, Choi, and Adames, and then a bottom three of Kiermaier, Margot, and Zunino. And the Rays got some contributions for some unlikely names that you wouldn't expect. Choi in the second inning hitting his first home run of the year from the left side to make it 1-0, and then Zunino in the third had a home run of his own, which I believe was his third of the season. That made it 2-0 Rays against Garrett Cole, which was especially surprising. I don't think anything necessarily is going to click for Zunino. He's only batting 104 this year, but obviously is a good catcher, and I think that's something that I'll continue to say on this show is everyone wants to talk about the offensive input of the catcher, and I think that's fine. I think there is a lot of value to having a guy in the ninth spot of the lineup that can get on base or knock runners in, whatever the case is. It always seems like the 9-hitter comes up in a big spot. We also have a question here from Steven. He says, is Garrett Cole weak, or are the Rays that good? I would say, honestly, we have to say that the Rays are that good. Garrett Cole has been very good this year, an ERA of just 2.75. I mean, he was rolling. He got through almost 7 innings of just 2-run ball. Obviously, serving up those meatballs to Choi and Zunino, I guess could go to the point that, Cole, you can't say he had an off night. He still had a good game, and it was the Rays, being, good against him and exercising some demons. Obviously, this isn't the same team from a year ago. It doesn't have the Tommy Phams of the world, the Avisail Garcia, the Travis d'Arnaud's. It is a different lineup, but you look at a guy like Adames, who made a point the last time they faced Cole. They wanted to get revenge. Obviously, Kiermaier, Brandon Lau, Yandy Diaz, Austin Meadows. The core is still there. Garrett Cole being so dominant in his 2 starts in the ALDS that was ultimately the difference maker. If it wasn't such a gem from Garrett Cole in Game 5, the Rays might have walked away with that series and would have taken on the Yankees in the ALCS, and who knows what would have happened from there. So I think that's a separate point to make. To answer the question, obviously the right answer would be the Rays are just that good right now. You love what the lineup is doing. The timely hitting against one of the best relievers in baseball, and Zach Britton, handing him his second loss to the Rays this year and second overall. I mean, really great stuff. We talked with Seth earlier. Really the only thing that you could complain about was the bullpen, although it did do the job tonight. Ultimately, that wasn't the complaint. It's about how is it going to last? Obviously, Chaz Rowe did not look good on a back-to-back. You can only put Nick Anderson in, an inning or 2 every couple days. How that shakes out, he can't, come up in every big spot. And it was a guy like Jalen Beeks who came through with the winning run at the plate in the bottom of the 9th, and he ends up getting the save in the last couple of outs. In his first true save as a Ray, he only had one save previous, and it was one of those weird quirks in the save stat where if you close out the last 3 innings, no matter the score, it still counts as a save. So not really a high leverage spot. Obviously, Beeks, a guy, he started some games, followed an opener, but for him to do what he did tonight, I thought was really, really great. Again, number to call if you want to talk Rays. We'll be with you another 15, 20 minutes or so. 877-566. 1020 is the number to call. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter if you want to tweet us on there. So we gave you the lineup, we gave you the defensive alignment, and another point I wanted to make, and I put this on Twitter at WHBC Stream as well. Definitely follow that. I'll retweet some of the Rays stuff and have some thoughts on it. The Rays, I thought their mindset was more defensive minded. I thought Yoshi, a lefty bat, would have been in the lineup against the right-handing starter of Cole, and he didn't even come in as a pinch hitter. His defense is not great, whether it was at third base or in the corner outfield. Having Manny Margot, a righty bat in right field, although he did have a bit of a hiccup there, getting a ball caught in the right field wall. That move was obviously made for defense. You look along the infield as well. Yandy Diaz ended up getting the start at third base. Choi at first, and then you had Jose Martinez DH, which ultimately did his job. They bring him in to crush lefties, and I believe, I think he got hit by a pitch because he scored a run, but went 0 for 4, no walks, no strikeouts. And he also cleaned up tonight, so that was a big spot for him. And then Choi batting 5th. I didn't like him in cleanup, but he did hit well in the 5 spot. I think maybe that's where you put him, right in the middle of the order. He goes 1 for 2 with that solo home run, also walked and struck out. So like we see, also some takeaways. Kiermaier 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts. It was an off night for him. Margot 1 for 4. He's now batting .286, so what a comeback he's had. Obviously the Zunino a home run. It was a great pinch hit appearance for Brasso. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the top of the lineup, Brandon Lau walked and had a hit. Yandy Diaz in the 2 spot went 0 for 5 in a strikeout, but he did get on base via an error late in a crucial spot. And Austin Meadows leading off 1 for 4, no walks, 2 strikeouts. One thing I'll say about Meadows that I wasn't a big fan of in his first at-bat, he swung at the first pitch from Cole, and it ended up being a fly out. I think that was, obviously there's a whole lot of things at play, but when you look at, why isn't an offense going like the Rays were early in the season, it was because they couldn't get a good leadoff hitter. They had Choi, I believe Brandon Lau also as well. They mixed and matched because they didn't have Austin Meadows with the COVID-19. We know from all that. But the leadoff hitter is not just about having speed and getting on base, stealing bases, working walks, what have you, the traditional thought of a leadoff man. But what's so crucial, and it's not talked a lot about, is a leadoff hitter that can take pitch a lot of pitches in the first at bat and really make the pitcher work is such a huge factor. Obviously, you're not going to have a 10 pitch at bat every time, but if you can spoil some away and even just take strikes early in the count instead of swinging at the first pitch, it allows the 2 and 3 hitters to get a look at the starter and kind of prep. Obviously, they know how they're going to approach the pitcher, but obviously being able to see the stuff in real time helps a lot. And it making the pitcher work as well right out of the gate, not allowing him to settle in. Obviously, Garrett Cole only threw 8 pitches in the first inning. And that's exactly what he did, was settle in the first. But if Meadows had worked a 5, 6, 7, 8 pitch at bat in the leadoff spot, who knows? Maybe Diaz gets on base. Brandon Lau, he didn't get a hit in the first inning. Maybe he would have done something different. You never know. Obviously, it doesn't even matter if Meadows walks or it gets hit, it gets on base. Even if you fly out, strike out, what have you, if you work a long at bat, it really goes such a long way for the reasons that I mentioned. So that's something, and he has relatively done a good job at that. And I guess maybe with Chad Mottola, the hitting coach, and all those guys, maybe that was their game plan. And especially with the woes that they've had against Cole, is maybe that was just the strategy. He's not really going to give you a lot of pitches to hit, so if you see something relatively that you can get the barrel on, go ahead and swing at it. Doesn't matter what the count is. So Meadows flies out in the first pitch they at bat, and they had that. I believe it was Jose Martinez or someone like that led off an inning and swung at the first pitch. I believe it was Martinez who went 0 for 4. So that's to nitpick. Obviously, you win a series in the Bronx, the first time the Yankees have lost in Yankee Stadium since April of 2019 against the White Sox. They mentioned that on Dave and Andy on the broadcast on WDAE. So I mean, a lot of positives, and we'll talk about that. The Tyler Glasnow start in the bullpen clutch. But going inning by inning again in the top of the first, Cole only threw 8 pitches, put the Rays down 1-2-3. In the bottom of the first, it was Tyler Glasnow. He walked Voit, but it was a relatively clean inning outside of that. Top of the second, it was G-Man Choi, that 413-foot home run, his first from the left side. G-Man Choi has given up switch hitting, at least for this year. It was talked, from him, and that maybe it's just not the best time for him. It's kind of taken away from both sides of the plate. He's not as good at the left side anymore, and the right side wasn't exactly going either. So I know, and I think honestly we see guys I'm blanking on some guys. I think Francisco Lindor. And even Aaron Hicks to an extent, when they have not Lindor, but Ozzie Albies for the Braves, guys that are switch hitters in the lineup, but they really struggle from one side of the plate, and it's clear they're not as good. But they do it just because that lefty righty advantage. But sometimes just specializing from one side of the plate, I think Choi will ultimately be better even against lefty pitchers from the left side than trying to mix and match and do the switch hitting. His stats so far this year, batting from the left side against righties, he was 167, 281 on base percentage, 9 walks. And batting from the right side against lefties, he was 111, no walks. So obviously the righty wasn't really working out. Of course, it was the home run from the right side on the opening series on Sunday against the Blue Jays. They ended up walking it off a little bit later on a Kiermaier triple. So I think that kind of got the buzz going, but obviously he struggled from that point on from the right side, and they've shut down the G-Man Choi switch hitting experience, if you will. Again, number to call as we continue to break down tonight's Rays win, 877-566-1020. You can tweet us as well at WHBC Stream. So at that point in the second inning, the Rays had a 1-0 lead against Cole. It's great. Maybe, Garrett Cole, you can snap his 20 consecutive his win streak. And of course, if the Rays had been able to do that, I would have gone on with an extravagant a monologue about the Tampa Bay team's getting revenge. Of course, the Rays send the Blue Jackets home, and that would have been perfect symmetry if they could have handed Garrett Cole his first loss in I believe since May of last year. So they could not get it done. Ultimately, they get the win, so it doesn't matter too much. Bottom of the second, it was a Gardner walk and steals, but that's it. That was with 2 outs, and Glasnow ends up getting out of it. Top of the third, Zunino hit a 428-foot homer into Monument Park, about dead center. They made a 2-0 Rays. Obviously, he goes 1 for 4, 3 strikeouts. So kind of it's the Zunino experience. He'll hit an occasional home run. He's got the power that he flashes at times. He's batting 104 on the year. So honestly, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the hitting doesn't matter. You get a timely home run that kind of made the difference tonight. That's all fine and great. But he's there to be a good backstop, and the pitchers like throwing to him, and that's really what matters. Mikey Perez obviously is a better hitter, can also run on the bases a little bit better as well, though he did get thrown out trying to stretch a single into a double But obviously, you would never see Zunino even attempt that, so that kind of gives you the point from there. But yeah, batting in the 9th spot, did hit a solo home run, so you do get the offensive output from him tonight. In the bottom of the 3rd inning, it was Luke Voit with 2 outs and a 3-2 count. Hits a solo home run that makes it 2-1 Rays. So Glasnow, a strike away from getting out of the inning, gives up a solo shot to Voit, who has really been putting it to the Rays this series for sure. He always seems to come to the plate in a big moment and come through. Another thing about Voit, his home run against Snell, something that Snell had mentioned. He had put a plan together with Coach Kyle Schneider going into the game, how they're going to attack the lineup. And Snell said he went off of what they had discussed, and that ultimately hurt him. I guess he just fed the fastball down the throat of Voit, and he ended up taking him out. The plan was to do more soft kind of stuff away, whether the slider or the changeup, what have you. But Snell, a guy that been saying he needs to trust his fastball more. Maybe that was just some gut instinct on his part, but ultimately it ended up coming to bite him, and that was just an interesting anecdote that we got. I believe it was either today or yesterday. Top of the 4th inning, the Rays get 1st and 2nd with 2 outs, and Kevin Kiermaier strikes out looking, takes the pitch in a 3-2 count, and it could have been called the ball. Obviously, it was on the corner, but he gets rung up, so that could have been a big moment to drive in some runs, but Kiermaier strikes out in a big spot. He went 0 for 4 again with 2 strikeouts, so not a good offensive game for him, but did look good in center field. Bottom of the 4th, it was a 1-2-3 inning, 2 strikeouts. It was Mike Ford and Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez, boy, I'm sure the Yankees are hating on him right now on the post game on WFAN. I'll have to check that out after the show to hear everyone complain about how they lose to the lowly poverty Rays. I know anyone listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, and it is oh so sweet to beat the Yankees, especially in Yankee Stadium, and take the series. And now just a half game back. If they can take the game tomorrow, I'll keep refreshing it. It doesn't look like the starting pitcher is announced. I would imagine Trevor Richards. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we preview tomorrow's game. It's still undecided against James Paxton, who the Rays lit up in the 6th inning the last time Paxton saw the Rays. So we'll close the show with that. Top of the 5th inning, it was Meadows with a 2-out double, but then Yandy struck out to leave him on there. A point I wanted to make as well. This is kind of trademark for the Rays, not so much in this road trip, but they were 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position, left 7 men on base. Was Martinez 0 for 1, KK 0 for 2, Diaz 0 for 1, Margot 0 for 1, and then 2 guys who came through, Adames 1 for 1, and Brasso in a pinch hit appearance. And boy, has Brasso become a real valuable asset. He can play first, second, third. They're now training him at shortstop. Didn't like him in the corner outfields, but theoretically he can give you an appearance there if you need him there. In the bottom of the 5th, it was a 1-2-3 inning, another 2 strikeouts. So Glasnow really started to settle in. That was really he struggled a little bit in his 6th inning of work. Didn't finish the 6th inning. In the top of the 6th, it was a 2-out walk for Choi. And then they left him on there, but Garrett Cole was at that point at 99 pitches, so you think maybe that was going to be it for them. He got you through 6, and I believe he was trailing at that point. It was 2-1, and then in the bottom of the 6th, the Yankees tied up, and it was a Glasnow exit. It was Hicks with a leadoff triple. Margot struggled getting the ball out of the right field wall. Probably should have been a double. Was not ruled an error, though, so it's a Hicks triple. Voit walks to put man on the corners with nobody out, and a Gio Urshela sac fly to tie it up. Mike Ford strikes out, and at that point they take Tyler Glasnow out. His line finishes at 5 2/3, gives up 2 earned runs on just 2 hits, walks 3, which was a bit of a concern, 8 strikeouts. That solo home run to Luke Voit, 88 pitches, 51 of which were for strikes. And again, I mentioned this earlier, 13 of 22 as far as the first pitch strikes, which is such a key for starting pitchers without a doubt. So, as I said, I think this is going to be a turning point for him, a big start. I know a Yankees lineup that's a bit depleted, no Judge, no Stanton, no LeMahieu. Obviously, this series would have looked a lot differently if those guys had been healthy, but you can only beat the men in front of you. That's what I always say. And the Rays did just that. So Glasnow was a no decision for him because of the tie game, but you like what you see. Ryan Thompson comes in at that point. Torres single, makes it first and second with 2 out, and then he gets Gary Sanchez out to end the inning. And then we head to the top of the 7th. It was Garrett Cole exiting after 109 pitches. He ends up keeping his win streak intact. The streak, to be specific, if you're not sure what I'm referring to, 20 straight wins without a loss. A lot of no decisions in there. It's not like every straight start is a win, but he's recorded 20 wins without a loss. So the Rays made a bid at ruining that, and Garrett Cole ends up getting almost through 109 pitches, which is the most he's thrown in a game this year. To start the inning, this was with Cole still on the mound. Kevin Kiermaier grounded out, and then Manny Margot getting on with a bunt single. Gio Urshela struggled with it at third base, and this is something I've been meaning to bring up. It's all kind of coming to me as I'm going through the game recap. Manny Margot, a guy who came over from the National League. Obviously, they bunt more in the National League, of course, with the pitchers and everything like that. Sacrifice is, it's more of an old-fashioned game without the DH. We know from all that, more fastballs, so on and so forth. So Margot, obviously a guy who knows how to bunt. The Rays do not have a lot of guys like that. And we've seen time and time again, he got on a bunt single in Buffalo, and he's tried a lot, whether to move runners over or even with the bases empty, which I wish Kevin Kiermaier would do more, but he's obviously not a good bunter, so that explains why they don't do that. But Margot, I mention this because I think it's always good to have a guy who can do that, especially in a big spot to move runners over or just to even get a base runner. So that was a good thing to see, I think. Zunino strikes out, and they take Garrett Cole out at that point. He did leave the go-ahead run on the base path, but Zach Britton cleaned it up. Garrett Cole's stat line, he finishes 6 2/3, 2 earned runs on 6 hits, walks a single man, strikes out 10, gives up 2 solo home runs, 109 pitches, 78 of which were for strikes. Garrett Cole does not leave a lot outside the zone. And try this. Garrett Cole faced 27 batters, threw a first pitch strike in 22 of those 27. So that really tells you everything you need to know. A very efficient start from him, almost getting through 7. And I mentioned that last night's show. I'm sure Cole will go 6 or 7 with ease. I wasn't expecting 2 home runs to Choi and Zunino, but that is of course this year that's kind of how things have been going. So Zach Britton comes in and gets Meadows to strike out to end the inning. Bottom of the 7th, the Yankees get the go-ahead run 90 feet away but can't score. It was Gardner with the leadoff single. Tauchman moves him over. Estrada strikes out, so it's 2 outs. Gardner at second base. They take Ryan Thompson out at that point. Thompson finished with an inning pitch, 2 hits, a strikeout, no walks, and obviously no runs. 10 pitches, 9 of which were for strikes, so a decent appearance in the middle of the game in the 5th and 6th inning, the 6th and 7th inning. So they put Peter Fairbanks in. It was Aaron Hicks striking out. And in that at bat, Gardner had advanced to third on a wild pitch, and getting the strikeout of Hicks was huge. So a good spot for Fairbanks, who ended up getting the win. He's now 3-1. So I also like what you're seeing from him right now. We go to the top of the 8th inning. The Rays get to Britton once again. It was Diaz on an error. Gets all the way to second base on a recall. It was a ground ball down the first base line, and it was, I believe, Luke Voigt diving for it, and he tried to throw it to the pitcher, Britton, and Britton had trouble with it, couldn't get it in the glove, and then it rolls away, and Diaz, with a really good base running, knows that there's no one backing up, which probably should have been the catcher, Gary Sanchez. He has not been good defensively, really, his whole Yankee career, but what can you say from that? And Diaz gets all the way to second base. And, basically, it feels like a leadoff double. The extra innings, the man on second, nobody out is essentially what it was, and the Rays have been good at executing that situation. Brandon Lau walks to make it runners at the corners with nobody out, and it was a wild pitch that got Diaz to third, by the way, in that at-bat. And then it was Jose Martinez, a fielder's choice. They put the contact play on. Diaz was running from the start, but they threw him out pretty easily at home. So it's first and second with 1 out. Obviously, you're not thinking that they blow it. They still have a runner in scoring position, no longer 90 feet away. You're going to need a hit instead of a sac fly. And then it was Brasso pinch hitting it was G-Man Choi playing the righty-lefty game. It was the lefty Zach Britton in So they put the righty Brasso, and this is what Seth mentioned earlier in the call, that Boone really blew the game tonight. It should have been the right-handed pitcher of Adam Ottavino coming in to face the righty Brasso. But Boone sticks with his guy in Britain. I mean, he had one of the best seasons as a closer a few years ago with the Orioles. We know from all of that. He had already recorded a loss against the Rays. It was that walk-off single for Mikey Perez, and probably one of the best weekends of his life. He had a couple of game-winning hits. One was the sacrifice fly, I believe, but close enough. And Brasso gets in a pinch hit situation, an RBI single that made it 3-2 Rays, and of course they never looked back. So we were talking with Seth about who's the MVP of the game. Jalen Beeks potentially is a guy you look at with the save, and I think Mike Brasso. It's not easy to pinch hit. They say that all the time. You're sitting on the bench the whole game. You're not active. You're not moving around. And then all of a sudden, you're supposed to stand in against one of the best relievers in baseball, and somehow Brasso ends up coming through. So his Rays stock right now, I think, is through the roof. And then it was Adames on a 3-0 count. It's another RBI single to make it 4-2 Rays. So they take Britton out and put Jonathan Loaizaga in. Britton finishes with the loss. He's now 0-2, both those losses again against the Rays. 2/3 innings pitched, an earned run on 2 hits, a walk, strikeout. 26 pitches, only 13 of which were for strikes. And then Kevin Kiermaier moves the runners over to make it 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs. So a base hit from Margot could have really put this game away. It would have been 6-2 most likely, but he grounds out to keep it close. And that kept the game interesting. Certainly, bottom of the 8th, they put Nick Anderson in. They take Fairbanks out. Again, he gets the win, 3-1. He only got 1 out, and it was a strikeout, obviously. I believe of Aaron Hicks with Gardner 90 feet away. So that was a big spot for him. So you like what you see from Fairbanks. There was only 6 pitches, but he is coming on off a back-to-back, so I don't think they would use him tomorrow. We'll close the show with that. We'll blow through the 2020 sports update, and we'll just give you basketball and hockey towards the end. Again, number to call 877-566-1020 as we put a wrap on the program. If you want to get on the air and talk to me and get your thoughts documented on here, that's perfectly fine, and we'd love to hear from you. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter to do that as well. Again, Nick Anderson comes in the bottom of the 8th to face the top of the order. It was the 2, 3, and 4 hitter, so obviously we talked about that pretty in-depth with Seth, is that this is the new Kevin Cash. This is his spin on what a closer is. It's not necessarily the 9th inning or the save situation, but it's the most cool high leverage spot. And I mentioned this last night. I mean, if the top of the lineup, you get the 2, 3, 4 hitters out, then all it is, and I say it's Torres, Sanchez, and Brett Gardner. So those aren't easy either. But obviously Voit, Urshela, and Ford are the biggest outs out in that equation, and Nick Anderson gets them, of course, with ease. Voit pops out, Urshela and Ford strike out in another quiet inning. His line, he records his 4th hold of the year, and in a clean inning pitch, 2 strikeouts, 13 pitches, 9 of which were for strikes. He was also 0 for 3 as far as getting the first pitch strike, but was able to overcome that. That's usually such a big part of Anderson's game, but obviously it worked just fine. Top of the 9th, a bit of a scare. They don't end up getting any insurance runs. Zunino strikes out. Austin Meadows gets hit by a pitch on his right hand that didn't look good. He was in some pain. It doesn't look like we've heard anything from the bad news with that. We'll keep you updated if there is. Obviously, that would be a huge loss. Just getting it back from the COVID a few weeks ago. So it looks like he's going to be fine. That was the scare, and then Yandy grounds into a double play to erase the hit by pitch anyway. And then it was the ever-entertaining bottom of the 9th inning. How are they going to string it together? It was Chaz Rowe put on to get his 2nd save in as many nights. He got the save last night against the Yanks in that 6-3 win. Again, Anderson comes out that clean inning. Rowe in. It was Torres working a leadoff walk, and then he walks Gary Sanchez to make it 1st and 2nd. Nobody out. The tying run is at first. The game-winning run would be at the plate in the bottom of the 9th again. A walk-off would be so demoralizing, really. And then it was Brett Gardner to fly out. So a righty on lefty. That was a key out for him. They take Chaz Rowe out, put Jalen Beeks in. Chaz Rowe only recorded 1 out in that appearance, gets his 2nd hold of the year. In that out, Obviously, no earned runs, no hits, but the 2 walks, 14 pitches, 6 of which were for strikes. And because it's the theme of the night, he was 2 for 3 as far as the first pitch strikes, but obviously he walked 2, so it didn't end up mattering anyway. They were spitting on the slider that they had been swinging at the night before, so obviously I think that was not my favorite move. I would have maybe liked to see Castillo in that spot, but you think maybe saving Diego for tomorrow and giving him the day's rest, although he did warm up in the pen, so obviously he was available. And then, so it is Jalen Beeks called on to save the day with runners at first and second. I gave you all that. They pinch it for Mike Tauchman, put Andujar at the plate to get the lefty-righty matchup, and Andujar ends up striking out. Again, we talked about how hard it is to pinch hit. Usually what you get is that Andujar struck out in 3 pitches, not an RBI game-winning single for Mike Brasso. So that's really if you want to talk about the 2 tails of the game, there it is in simplistic fashion. So Andujar strikes out for the second out, and then they get Tyro Estrada, which was kind of interesting to me. I would have figured Boone would rather have Tauchman hit and then have Andujar pinch hit for Estrada. But they let Estrada hit. He goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. He strikes out to end the game. Rays win, Rays win, Rays win, as Dave Wills always says. Also, I should have mentioned this earlier. A wild pitch in that Estrada at-bat advanced the runners to second and third, so a single would have tied the game. So that Tyro Estrada strikeout ended up being big, so a big spot for Jalen Beeks. And his true first save in a high-leverage spot for the Rays, something he's not necessarily done. 2 outs, strikes them both out, 7 pitches, 6 were for strikes, 1 for 2 on the first pitch strikes as far as the at-bats go. And that's about it. From that, we mentioned the takeaway with G-Man Choi, and as we look ahead to tomorrow, as we put a wrap on this program, again, number to call 877-566-1020 if you're still tuned in. It is still, I believe, unannounced or undecided against James Paxton. My guess is it would be Trevor Richards. His last time out, he's on a full 5 days rest, so it works out. He went 4 1/3 with 3 earned runs on 4 hits against the Blue Jays, so got the job done. And if you recall last Sunday, as I mentioned earlier to Seth, it was that Sunday game against the Yankees, and it was Morton that started the game. He got through 2 innings, and the shoulder issue, which put him on the IL. We'll see him this weekend, by the way. And, that game was going to be tough at that point. Paxton was rolling. They ended up getting 4 shutout innings from Trevor Richards, 2 unearned run. That was the Manny Margot error in center field that brought 2 runs across, if you recall. Right after, I believe that was his first game back after coming back from, the loss of his father. So things definitely weren't great for him, but boy, did he respond. He's now batting almost 300 and started tonight to shore up the defense instead of having Yoshi out there. Obviously, we know from all that. Trevor Richards, I would expect to start tomorrow. I would imagine that's the plan. I think the Yankees are expecting that. I don't think Kevin McCash is fooling anybody by not announcing it. Either that or just I'll check the Twitter for Mark Topkin. Maybe ESPN just doesn't have it yet, so we'll have that. But they are going to be in a bit of a bind. Actually, this just coming from Mark Topkin. John Curtis will be the opener for the Rays tomorrow. Expect Richards to handle bulk innings, so they don't trust Richards for whatever reason with the start. We also did get a question from No, that wasn't a question. That was just someone replying on Twitter. So excuse me for that. So that is how it's going to shake out. John Curtis, the guy that I was expecting would maybe give 2 innings in the middle of the game, but now maybe an inning if it's a true opener, or maybe 2 as they did with Ryan Thompson in that doubleheader against the Yankees, which was really the only time that they've used an opener. So it will be John Curtis followed by Trevor Richards, we assume. So that could get you potentially through 5 or 6 innings, as I believe we mentioned with Seth, and then from that point you just play traditional bullpen-wise. Their options, Fairbanks, Anderson, and Rowe have finished a back-to-back, so they're all not going to be available, you would assume. Castillo's on a day's rest. He had gotten to a bases-loaded jam in that game, so not great, but probably their most high-leverage option. Jalen Beek came in, so you could, but only got 2 outs and threw less than 10 pitches, I believe. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, threw 7 pitches, 6 for strikes. So he could obviously come in and give you an inning, potentially 2. That might be stretching it, but you could do that if you wanted to. Anthony Bonda is a guy that stretched out, could give 3 innings if it's a blowout or whatever. He last appeared in a game last week at Boston. John Curtis, who will open. Aaron Loop is a guy, a middle inning reliever that gets you an inning in a spot where there's more lefties than righties, I would assume. Aaron Slegers maybe could give you an inning or 2, and then Ryan Thompson would be on a back-to-back if he pitches tomorrow. But if it's a close game, you would see Thompson, Loop, and Castillo, and probably Beeks, I would say. But if it's not, Bonda and Slegers will probably have mop-up duty. Again, James Paxton, he's 1-1 on the year, a 7.04 ERA in 15 innings pitched. Will give his last couple of starts. His last start was on Saturday against the Red Sox, 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs on 6 hits. And his last start against the Rays, he went 6 1/3, 3 earned runs on 4 hits, 2 home runs back-to-back. So if you recall, he cruised through 6 innings, it was actually. And then it was a leadoff double, I believe, for Jose Martinez. And then it was a home run, I believe, from Mike Brasso to put 2 runs up. And then Brandon Lau, right after that, hit a home run to tie the game at 3. And it was Zach Britton taking the loss on a walk-off single for Mikey Perez. So a guy, although went through 6 1/3, don't let it fool you. I mean, he did fool the Rays hitters pretty well through the first 5 or 6 innings, but the Rays got the last laugh against him, and the 7 ERA speaks for itself. We mentioned with the starting, John Curtis, the opener, that's fine. Have Trevor Richards follow him. That'll probably work out. Get the outs early instead of trying to chase him late. I like that approach. And against James Paxton, that's what it will be. So that's about it as far as that goes. I just wanted to give you the score since we didn't do as many of the updates for the hockey today. Obviously, the Lightning will probably do a piece on this and maybe get Aaron on. The Rays did win the series, so I didn't want to take away from that. But it was the Lightning 5-4 over the Blue Jackets in overtime. It was Braden Point getting another overtime goal. I saw something that he's the new Marty St. Louis, which I just think is kind of funny to think of, Stamkos, Kucherov, all these big pieces, but it's Braden Point that's, the guy. But he's, 2 game-winning goals in overtime already. Also, I don't have his name in front of me, but the guy that calls the games on Fox Sports Sun for the Lightning, the Fox Sports Sun, I guess, gets the first round, and then it'll just be NBCSN from here on out. And this was his last year for the Lightning, so his final moment as a play-by-play man was calling that Braden Point goal, and it was pretty eccentric. So congratulations to him, and hopefully a good retirement and all of that. Enjoy listening to him on Fox Sports Sun. Obviously now probably more Dave Mishkin on the radio will be my go-to. But again, the Lightning get revenge on the Blue Jackets. We'll probably do a piece on that tomorrow. This was the big day for closing out of series. The Bruins win 2-1 to win the series, 4 games to win over the Hurricanes. So the Hurricanes put the beating on the Rangers, and they ultimately can't beat the Bruins. So it'll probably be a Bruins and Lightning Eastern Conference final, I believe is how it'll shake out. And then the Avalanche were 7-1 over the Coyotes. They close out that series. The Avalanche, probably the best team coming out of the West, depending on how you feel about Vegas. So they close out that series against the Coyotes team that obviously wasn't very good. A game that has gone final, the Canadiens stay alive. They win 5-3 over the number 1 seed Flyers. And that series is now tied, that series is now a 3-2 lead for Philadelphia. So the Canadiens staying alive again, as I said. And in the second period, it's the Blues 3-1 over the Canucks. That series is tied 2 games apiece. We look ahead to tomorrow's contests. Just a couple of night games. The Islanders and Caps. The Islanders lead 3-1. They were up 3-0, and then some late game heroics from Ovechkin ends up leading Washington to a win. So the Islanders looking to put it away. I imagine that's who the Lightning will play in the next round. And also at 10:30 tomorrow, the Calgary Flames and Stars. The Stars have really come on strong. They now lead that series 3-2 and can put that series away. And then from the basketball, most of them have gone final. The only one that's still in action with 152 left, it's the Mavericks up 10 points, 122 to 112, up on the Clippers. The Clippers lead that series 1-0. It was the Raptors 104-109 over the Nets. So the Raptors take a somewhat commanding 2-0 lead. Obviously, the Nets without Kyrie and without Durant, they're not expected to do much. But Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, they've got the pieces there still. But they lose another game to the Raptors. Again, Toronto up 2-0. The Jazz 124 to 105 over the Nuggets. That series now tied 1 game apiece. And the Celtics 128 to 101 over the Sixers. Boston now leads that series 2-0. So it looks like the Celts will continue their dominance over Philly in the postseason. Looking ahead to tomorrow's contests, it's the Heat and the Pacers. Miami up 1-0. Thunder and Rockets. Houston leads that series 1-0. And interesting to see Game 2, Magic and Bucks. The Magic shocked the world and took Game 1 of that series. So Orlando up 1-0. And in another upset, Game 2 at 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, the Lakers and Trailblazers. Portland took Game 1. Damian Lillard is absolutely red hot, and I think you talk about legacy. This could be one of the coolest sports stories in recent memory. I can see the documentaries now. The Damian Lillard bubble experience, kind of like Kemba Walker in his for UConn, the Big East tournament where he just went on a tear and put the team on his back. That's kind of what Lillard is doing right now. They do have some pieces though: Hassan Whiteside, C.J. McCollum, some guys. And I think they have a big man center that's pretty good too. So a good team, but I mean, playing the Lakers, a team that we thought would probably play the Bucks in the finals. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, from all that. So that'll be a series that'll be interesting to watch. Probably one of the more intriguing matchups that we have. And again, tomorrow it'll be James Paxton versus John Curtis. It's going to be an opener. We expect Trevor Richards to follow. I mean, it's not confirmed. You don't have to confirm that, but I would say I would be surprised if it wasn't. And Anthony Bonda, some guys that maybe could go. But it looks like it'll be Richards. So you like that. Maybe get through 5 or 6 innings or so. That game also, programming note, is at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll be on the air 9 o'clock sharp. We'll have a piece put together for Lightning and all that. And maybe talk to Aaron, the show's NHL correspondent. It was good to be on the air tonight. Got about an hour and a half out of the program. Appreciate Seth from LA calling in. Hopefully you guys could hear it. I know we had some issues with the audio. And of course, we'll talk to you tomorrow night at 9.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.